The metal doors of the airlock hissed open with a sharp sound that cut through the quiet of the research station. Dr. Hyun Woo stumbled through first, his legs shaking so badly he could barely walk. His white environmental suit was torn in 3 places, and green slime covered his helmet. Behind him came 2 other humans, both looking just as bad. The alien crew members who had been waiting in the docking bay stepped back in shock. Commander Veltar's 6 insect-like legs clicked nervously against the floor. Her large, compound eyes reflected the bright lights of the station as she watched the 3 survivors collapse against the wall. "Where are the others?" asked Dr. Quinthos, the tall, crystalline being whose body sparkled like a living diamond. His voice came out as musical tones that the translation device changed into words. Hyun-woo pulled off his damaged helmet with shaking hands. His black hair was wet with sweat, and his face was pale. "Dead," he said quietly. "All of them. 12 people in 4 days." The silence that followed was heavy and uncomfortable. 15 researchers had gone down to the jungle moon below them. Only 3 had come back alive. Young researcher Minho sat on the floor staring at nothing. His suit had burn marks from some kind of acid. "The vines," he whispered. "They came out of nowhere, spit acid right through our suits. Hyejin and Dongwook didn't even have time to scream." The 3rd survivor, Dr. So Young, was the team's medical officer. She had wrapped her arm in emergency bandages, but blood was still seeping through. "The Crystal Hunters got Taemin and Jaewon on day 2, she said, her voice flat and empty. "They hunt in packs, smart, too smart. They set traps." Commander Veltar's antennae twitched with concern. She had seen many failed expeditions in her long career with the Galactic Research Council, but losing 12 people in 4 days was unusual, even for a Class 5 Deathworld. "What about the fungal zones?" Dr. Quinthos asked. His crystalline body changed color from blue to purple, which meant he was worried. So Young shuddered. "Day 3. We thought the environmental suits would protect us. We were wrong. The spores got through somehow. Dissolved the suit material from the inside. Woo Jin and Sun Hee..." She couldn't finish the sentence. The alien medical team rushed forward to help the survivors. The station's chief medic, a furry creature called Dr. Flick Swan, scanned the humans with his medical tools. His bear-like face showed concern as he read the results. "Severe stress, chemical burns, and unknown toxin exposure," Dr. Flick Swan announced. "They need immediate treatment." As the medical team worked, Commander Veltar pulled up the mission files on her datapad. The jungle moon of Kepler 442c had been classified as a high-value research target because of its unusual plant life. Early scans had shown signs of possible energy-rich fruits that could solve the galaxy's food shortage problems. But the scans had also shown why it was labeled a Class 5 Deathworld. The entire surface was covered in dense jungle filled with predatory plants, aggressive wildlife, and toxic spores. Most species avoided such worlds completely. Humans, however, were different. They had a reputation for going places other species wouldn't dare to explore. Sometimes it worked out well for them, sometimes it didn't. "The plan was simple," Hyun-woo said as the medical team cleaned his wounds. "Get in, collect samples, get out. We had the best equipment, the best training, but nothing prepared us for that place." He paused and looked out through the observation window at the green and brown planet below. Even from space, the jungle looked dark and threatening. The first day went fine. We set up base camp in a clearing about 2 kilometers from the landing site. The energy readings were incredible. Plants everywhere were glowing with stored power. We thought we had found the answer to the galaxy's energy problems. Minho nodded slowly. Then night came. That's when we learned the jungle was alive. Not just the plants and animals, the whole thing like it was watching us. "Impossible," said Dr. Quinthos. "Planetary consciousness is theoretical at best." "Tell that to Yoonji and Kyung-soo," So Young said bitterly. "They were on night watch when the plants started moving, not just growing or bending in the wind." Actually moving, walking. The trees uprooted themselves and surrounded our camp. Commander Veltar made notes on her datapad. This was valuable information, even if it came at a terrible cost. How did you escape? Fire, Hyun Woo said simply. We burned everything around us and ran. Lost most of our equipment, but the three of us made it to the emergency shelter. The emergency shelter had been a backup plan, a small, fortified building placed by robot drones before the expedition arrived. It was supposed to be used only if everything went wrong. Everything had gone wrong. We stayed there for the rest of the mission time. Minho continued. Tried to call for extraction twice, but something was jamming our signals. Had to wait for the scheduled pickup. Dr. Flixwan finished his medical scans and looked up with worry. You said 15 went down. I count only 3 survivors. That leaves 12 dead. But you mentioned only 9 by name. The 3 humans looked at each other. Hyun Woo cleared his throat nervously. There were 3 others, he said slowly. Botanist Ji-hoon, geologist Chan Woo, and systems specialist Mi Jin. They stayed behind. Stayed behind? Commander Veltar's compound eyes focused sharply on him. On a Class 5 Deathworld? Why? Ji-hoon said he needed more time to study. The energy fruits, So Young explained. He found some kind of pattern in how they grew. Said it was important. Chan Woo and Mi Jin volunteered to stay with him. That was 3 weeks ago, Hyun Woo added quietly. They missed the extraction point. We waited as long as we could, but he didn't need to finish. Everyone in the room understood. 3 more humans were dead on the jungle moon below. The expedition had been a complete disaster. Commander Veltar closed her datapad with a click. I'll file the report with the Council. Kepler 442c will be upgraded to Class 6 status and marked as off-limits for future expeditions. The 3 survivors nodded sadly. 15 researchers had gone down to find miracle energy fruits that could help feed the galaxy. Instead, they had found only death in the green hell below. But as they were taken to the medical bay for treatment, none of them noticed the small blip that appeared on the long-range sensors. Something had just launched from the surface of the jungle moon. Something was coming home. 3 weeks had passed since the failed expedition report was filed. The research station had settled back into its normal routine of quiet scientific work. The 3 survivors had been sent home to recover from their terrible experience on the jungle moon. Commander Veltar was reviewing supply requests in her office when the emergency alarm started blaring. The sharp sound echoed through the metal hallways of the station, making everyone freeze in their tracks. All senior staff to the control room immediately, came the announcement over the speakers. Veltar's 6 legs carried her quickly down the corridor. Her compound eyes reflected the flashing red warning lights as she hurried to see what was wrong. Behind her, Dr. Quinthos followed, his crystalline body changing from calm blue to worried orange. The control room was filled with confused voices when they arrived. Lieutenant Kextar, a young insectoid officer, stood at the main sensor station, with his antennae twitching nervously. "Report," Commander Veltar ordered. "Ma'am, we're detecting an unauthorized launch from the surface of Kepler 442c, Kextar said, his voice shaking slightly. Something just broke through the atmosphere. Dr. Quinthos moved to another sensor station, his diamond-like fingers dancing over the controls. That's impossible. There's no technology down there. No one could survive 3 weeks on that death world. The object is heading directly for us, announced Dr. Flixwan from his position at the navigation station. His furry, bear-like face was wrinkled with worry. It's small, moving slowly and... He paused, checking his readings again. It's leaking some kind of biological material. Commander Veltar felt a cold feeling in her stomach. Put it on the main screen. The large display at the front of the room flickered to life, showing the view from their external cameras. Against the black of space, a small shuttle was limping toward them. But this wasn't any shuttle they recognized. The craft looked like It had been built from spare parts and scrap metal. Pieces of their original expedition equipment were welded together with what looked like organic material. Strange glowing vines wrapped around the hull, and a trail of sparkling spores followed behind it like a comet's tail. "By the void," whispered Dr. Quintos. "Someone actually built that thing down there." "Life signs?" Veltar asked. Dr. Flixwan checked his medical sensors. "I'm reading one human aboard. Vital signs are strange, but stable." The shuttle moved closer, and they could see more details. The hull wasn't just patched with plant matter. Living vines had grown through the metal, creating a network of green lines across the surface. Some kind of bioluminescent moss covered the engine ports, glowing softly in the darkness of space. "Should we shoot it down?" asked Kextar nervously. "It could be contaminated with dangerous organisms." Commander Veltar considered this. Standard protocol for Deathworld contamination was immediate destruction. But if there was a human survivor aboard, she couldn't just kill them without trying to help. "Open a communication channel," she ordered. The speakers crackled with static. Then a familiar voice came through, calm and clear. "Research Station Kepler 7. This is botanist Ji-hoon requesting permission to dock. I have important scientific samples that need immediate preservation." The control room fell silent. Everyone stared at the speakers in shock. "Ji-hoon?" "Commander." Veltar spoke into her microphone. "Is that really you? We thought you were dead." "Not dead, Commander, just very busy. I have some amazing discoveries to share with you." Dr. Quintos leaned over to Veltar. "This could be some kind of trap. Parasitic organisms that take over the host's mind are common on Deathworlds." But Veltar had heard something in Ji-hoon's voice that sounded genuine. "Permission granted to dock in Bay 3. All personnel will maintain quarantine protocols." The next hour was organized chaos. The medical team prepared isolation chambers while the security team set up protective barriers. Everyone watched nervously as the strange biomechanical shuttle slowly entered the docking bay. Steam hissed from the shuttle's engines as they powered down. The glowing vines along its hull seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat. Through the small window, they could see movement inside. The airlock cycled, and then the shuttle door opened. Ji-hoon stepped out and everyone gasped. His environmental suit had been completely modified. Living plant fibers were woven through the fabric, creating patches that seemed to breathe on their own. His helmet was covered with a network of thin roots, and bioluminescent flowers grew from his shoulder pads. But most shocking of all was what sat on his left shoulder. A small creature about the size of a house cat looked around the docking bay with large, curious eyes. Its fur was an impossible color that seemed to shift between silver and purple. As they watched, the creature's body became transparent for a moment, then solid again. "Hello, everyone," Ji-hoon said cheerfully, as if he had just returned from a normal research trip. "I'd like you to meet my friend Bomb. She's been very helpful." The small creature made a soft purring sound and tilted its head at the assembled aliens. When it moved, it seemed to flicker in and out of existence. Ji-hoon reached into a large bag attached to his suit and pulled out a container. Inside was a fruit that glowed with soft, warm light. The energy readings from it made all the scientific instruments in the bay start beeping wildly. "I found the energy fruit groves," he announced, "and they're even better than we hoped." He set down the bag and started pulling out more containers. Each one held fruits of different sizes and colors, all glowing with inner light. Some pulsed like heartbeats, others swirled with patterns of energy. Dr. Flixwan checked his sensors and his eyes went wide. "The energy output from those fruits, it's incredible. Each one contains enough power to run our main engines for days." "That's not the best part," Ji-hoon said with a smile. He gestured to Bomb, who was now grooming herself with tiny paws. "Bomb and her family showed me where the fruits grow. They've been protecting the groves for thousands of years." Commander Veltar stepped forward carefully. "Ji-hoon, What happened to Chan Wu and Mi Jin? Ji-hoon's expression became sad for a moment. They didn't make it through the first week. The jungle is dangerous if you don't know how to listen to it. But you survived for 3 weeks alone? Not alone, he said, reaching up to scratch Bomb behind her ears. The creature purred and rubbed against his hand. I had help. Lots of help. Once I figured out how to ask for it. Dr. Quinthos approached one of the fruit containers, his crystalline body shifting to bright yellow with excitement. How many of these fruits did you collect? 57 different varieties from 12 different grove sites, Ji-hoon replied. Each grove produces different types with different energy properties. Some are better for power storage, others for quick energy release. He paused and looked around at all the shocked faces staring at him. The jungle isn't trying to kill you, he said simply. It's trying to talk to you. You just have to learn how to listen. As if to prove his point, Bomb suddenly disappeared completely, then reappeared sitting on Dr. Quinthos's head. The crystalline scientist stood perfectly still, afraid to move. She likes you, Ji-hoon said with a laugh. Bomb can sense good intentions. Commander Veltar realized that everything they thought they knew about the Deathworld below had just changed. This wasn't going to be a simple rescue mission report. This was going to change everything. The debriefing room was filled with tension as the senior staff gathered around the long metal table. Ji-hoon sat at one end, still wearing his modified plant suit. Bomb perched on his shoulder, occasionally becoming transparent and then solid. Again, which made several of the alien officers very nervous. Commander Veltar activated the recording device in the center of the table. This is official debriefing session 447 Alpha. Subject is botanist Ji-hoon, lone survivor of the Kepler 442C. Extended mission. Please state your name and rank for the record. Ji-hoon Park, civilian botanist, attached to Galactic Research Council Expedition 447, he said calmly. Dr. Quinthos leaned forward, his crystalline body shifting to a skeptical red color. You were reported missing and presumed dead 3 weeks ago. Your colleagues said the jungle was actively hostile. How did you survive when 12 other researchers died in 4 days? Ji-hoon reached up and gently scratched Bomb under her chin. The small creature purred and flickered between dimensions. I stopped fighting the jungle and started listening to it instead. That's not a real answer, said Dr. Flixwan, his furry face wrinkled with confusion. The expedition report clearly states that the plant life was aggressive and the animal life was predatory. They were defending themselves, Ji-hoon replied simply. Think about it from their point of view. 15 strangers land on their world, start cutting down plants, taking samples without permission, and setting up camp wherever they want. How would you react? Lieutenant Kextar's antennae twitched nervously. But the vines that spit acid, the crystal hunters that set traps, the fungal colonies that dissolved the environmental suits. How do you explain that? Ji-hoon smiled. The acid vines were trying to mark territory boundaries. They only attacked when we crossed into areas we weren't supposed to be in. The crystal hunters weren't hunting us, they were herding us away from their nesting grounds. And the fungal colonies only dissolve artificial materials, not organic ones. He stood up and walked to the wall display, which was showing images from the failed expedition. Look at these pictures. Every attack happened when we were near something important. Water sources, nesting areas, food groves. The jungle was trying to tell us to stay away from places that mattered to them. Dr. Quinthos's color shifted to bright orange with surprise. You're saying the entire ecosystem was working together? Not just working together. Communicating, Ji-hoon said. Once I realized that, everything changed. Commander Veltar made notes on her datapad. Explain how you learned to communicate with plants and animals. Ji-hoon returned to his seat and Bomb jumped down to explore the table. She walked through a water glass without disturbing it, then became solid to sniff at Dr. Flixwan's medical. Scanner. It started with the smells, Ji-hoon began. After Chan Wu and Mi Jin died on the 7th day, I was alone in the emergency shelter. I noticed that different plants release different scents at different times. It wasn't random. There were patterns. He paused to collect his thoughts. I started keeping track of which smells came before attacks, which ones came before rain, which ones meant danger or safety. After a few days, I realized it was a chemical language. Chemical communication is common in many species, Dr. Quinthos admitted. But how did you learn to respond? Trial and error, Ji-hoon said with a laugh. I started collecting different plant saps and mixing them together. When I found combinations that worked, the attacks stopped in those areas. When I got it wrong, I had to run very fast. Lieutenant Kextar looked skeptical. But what about the crystal hunters? They're not plants. No, but they understand the plant language too, Ji-hoon explained. The crystal hunters are actually the jungle's caretakers. They protect the important areas and guide lost travelers to safety. Once I learned to ask for help instead of fighting them, they became my guides. Bomb had wandered over to Commander Veltar and was now sitting in her lap, purring softly. The commander's compound eyes showed surprise, but she didn't try to move. The creature away. That still doesn't explain how you found the energy fruit groves, Dr. Flixwan said. Our deep scans never detected them. Because they're protected, Ji-hoon replied. The groves are in the deepest part of the jungle, surrounded by defensive plants and crystal hunter territories. No scanners can reach them. You have to be invited in. He gestured to Bomb, who had now made friends with Commander Veltar and was rubbing against her arm. Bomb's people are the guardians of the groves. They've been protecting them for thousands of years, waiting for someone who could understand their importance. Dr. Quinthos's color shifted to deep blue with concentration. What exactly is Bomb's species? Our sensors can't classify her. She calls her people the Phase Walkers, Ji-hoon said. They exist partially in our dimension and partially somewhere else. They can move between spaces instantly, which makes them perfect guardians for the energy groves. How do you know what she calls her people? Asked Commander Veltar, gently petting Bomb's shifting fur. She taught me, Ji-hoon said simply. Not with words, but with images and feelings shared directly mind to mind. It took me 2 weeks to learn their basic communication method. The room fell silent as the implications of this sank in. First contact with an unknown species, achieved by a single human botanist who had learned to talk to plants. The energy fruits, Dr. Flixwan said finally. How many groves are there? I found 12 different grove sites, but Bomb showed me maps of at least 30 more, Ji-hoon replied. Each grove produces different types of fruits with different energy properties. Some store power for long periods, others release it quickly. Some even seem to generate energy from sunlight in ways our science doesn't understand yet. Lieutenant Kexitar pulled up the expedition reports on his datapad. But the original mission lost 12 people trying to find these groves. Why were you successful when they failed? Ji-hoon was quiet for a moment, thinking about his dead colleagues. They went in as conquerors, he said finally. Taking what they wanted, fighting anything that opposed them. I went in as a guest, asking permission, and offering friendship. Bomb flickered back to his shoulder and nuzzled against his neck affectionately. The jungle doesn't hate visitors, Ji-hoon continued. It just wants to be treated with respect. Once I proved I wasn't there to destroy things, the whole ecosystem opened up to me. The crystal hunters became my guides. The plants shared their, chemical language, and Bomb's people invited me to see the groves. Commander Veltar stopped petting the space where Bomb had been and looked up. This changes everything. If what you're saying is true, Kepler 442c isn't a Deathworld at all. It's a garden, Ji-hoon agreed. A very carefully tended garden with guardians who don't trust outsiders easily. But once you earn their trust, they're the most generous hosts in the galaxy. Dr. Quinthos stood up, his crystalline body now glowing, bright white with excitement. We need to organize a new expedition immediately. If there are 30 energy fruit groves, the implications for galactic civilization are enormous. Only if we do it right this time, Ji-hoon warned. Go in with weapons and mining equipment, and you'll get the same result as before. Go in with respect and patience, and they'll share wonders you can't imagine. He looked around the room at all the alien faces staring at him. The choice is yours. The news of Ji-hoon's discovery spread through the Galactic Research Council faster than light-speed communication. Within hours of the debriefing, secure messages were being sent to every major world in the galaxy. The energy crisis that had plagued galactic civilization for centuries might finally have a solution. In the high-security laboratory aboard the research station, Dr. Quinthos worked carefully with the fruit samples Ji-hoon had brought back. His crystalline fingers moved delicately over the scanning equipment as he analyzed the impossible energy readings. Fascinating, he muttered to himself, his body color shifting between blue and purple with excitement. The energy density is beyond anything in our databases. A single fruit contains enough power to run a starship for weeks. Nearby, Dr. Flixwan was studying Bomb with completely different equipment. The small creature sat patiently on an examination table, occasionally, becoming transparent and then solid again, while the bear-like doctor tried to understand what she was. Her biology makes no sense, Dr. Flixwan said, shaking his furry head. Half the time she doesn't register as being here at all. The other half, she shows signs of cellular structure unlike anything we've ever seen. Ji-hoon sat in a chair next to the examination table, watching his friend with concern. She's not from this dimension originally, he explained. Her people exist in multiple spaces at the same time. That's why your equipment can't read her properly. Bomb made a soft, chirping sound and flickered over to Ji-hoon's shoulder. She rubbed against his neck affectionately, and he could feel her sharing emotions of comfort and happiness through their mental link. The laboratory door hissed open, and Commander Veltar entered with a group of important-looking aliens. Ji-hoon recognized several species he had only read about in textbooks. There was a tall, elegant being with flowing tentacles who must be from the graceful dancers' civilization. Next to her stood a massive creature covered in rocky plates, who was clearly a mountain walker from the Outer Rim worlds. Ji-hoon, Commander Veltar said formally, I'd like you to meet the emergency council that has been formed to evaluate your discoveries. The graceful dancer flowed forward, her tentacles moving in complex patterns. I am Flow Singer Erthia, representing the inner core worlds, she said in a voice like wind chimes. Your findings have caused quite a stir in the galactic capital. The mountain walker's voice was like grinding stone. I am Rockbreaker Tholan of the outer mining colonies. We are very interested in these energy fruits you have discovered. Ji-hoon stood up and bowed politely, causing Bomb to adjust her position on his shoulder. Honored to meet you both, but I should make something clear right away. The energy fruits aren't just resources to be harvested, they're part of a living ecosystem with its own guardians and rules. Dr. Quinthos looked up from his analysis station. The energy readings are confirmed. These fruits could solve our civilization's power crisis completely. We're talking about clean, renewable energy that surpasses our best fusion reactors. How many fruits could be harvested from these groves? Asked Rockbreaker Tholan, his rocky face showing obvious interest. That's not the right question, Ji-hoon replied carefully. The phase walkers don't think in terms of harvesting. They think in terms of partnership. The energy fruits grow better and produce more power when they're cared for properly, not just taken. Flow Singer Erthia's tentacles swirled in patterns that showed confusion. You speak of these phase walkers as if they were an advanced civilization. Our initial scans showed no signs of technology on the jungle moon. Bomb suddenly became very interested in the conversation. She climbed down from Ji-hoon's shoulder and walked across the table toward the graceful dancer. As she moved, she began to shimmer and change. The small cat-like creature grew larger and more complex. Her shifting fur became more defined, showing intricate patterns that seemed to contain star maps and mathematical formulas. Her eyes became deeper, showing an intelligence that was clearly ancient and sophisticated. All the aliens in the room stepped back in shock. "Bomb," Ji-hoon said with surprise. "I didn't know you could do that." The transformed Bomb looked at him with what might have been amusement, then turned to face the assembled council. When she spoke, it wasn't with words, but with direct mental communication that everyone in the room could understand. "Greetings, Council of the Young Races," came Bomb's mental voice, carrying undertones of vast age and wisdom. "We have been watching your civilization develop for many thousands of your years. We have been waiting for you to become ready for contact." Commander Veltar's compound eyes went wide. "Young races? How old is your species?" "We have existed since before your stars were born," Bomb replied through the mental link. "We are the Phase Walkers, guardians of spaces between dimensions. We have watched many civilizations rise and fall across the galaxy." Dr. Quinthos nearly dropped his scanning equipment. His crystalline body flashed through colors so quickly it was hard to follow. The theoretical mathematics for interdimensional travel, the energy requirements alone would be simple for those who exist partially outside your dimensional constraints. Bomb finished his thought. "We have been waiting for a species that could understand cooperation instead of conquest. Your human friend Ji-hoon was the first to approach us with respect instead of weapons." Rockbreaker Tholan's rocky face showed amazement. "You could travel anywhere in the galaxy instantly?" "Anywhere and anywhen," Bomb confirmed. "Past, present, future, parallel dimensions. All spaces are connected for those who know how to walk between them." Flow Singer Erthia's tentacles moved in complex patterns of excitement. The implications for galactic civilization, instant transportation, unlimited energy, contact with other dimensional civilizations. "All possible," Bomb agreed, "but only for species that have learned to live in harmony with their environment and each other. Too many young races see the galaxy as something to be conquered rather than something to be part of." Ji-hoon felt a mixture of pride and responsibility. "Bomb's people have been testing us," he realized. The energy fruit groves, the dangerous reputation of the jungle moon, everything was designed to see how we would respond. "The jungle tests all visitors," Bomb confirmed. "Those who come with violence and greed find violence and death. Those who come with curiosity and respect find friendship and knowledge." Commander Veltar was making rapid notes on her datapad. "This changes our understanding of everything. First contact protocols, energy policy, exploration guidelines." "What do your people want from us?" asked Dr. Flixwan. Bomb's form shimmered and became more cat-like again as she returned to Ji-hoon's shoulder. "We want partners, not servants. We want to share knowledge, not be exploited. We want to help young civilizations grow wise, not just powerful." She nuzzled against Ji-hoon's neck affectionately. "Your friend has shown us that humanity has the potential to be good partners. Whether the rest of your species can learn the same lessons remains to be seen." The room fell into thoughtful silence as everyone processed what they had learned. The energy crisis could be solved, but only if galactic civilization was willing to change its approach to exploration and resource gathering. Rockbreaker Tholun spoke first. "My people have always taken what we needed from the galaxy. This idea of partnership is difficult to understand, but necessary," Flow Singer Erthia added. "If we want access to Phase Walker technology and the energy groves, we must prove we can be trusted with such power." Dr. Quinthos was still staring at his readings from the energy fruits. "The potential benefits are enormous. Clean energy, instant transportation, contact with advanced civilizations from other dimensions. It would revolutionize everything. Or destroy everything if misused," Bomb warned gently. "Power without wisdom has ended many promising civilizations." Ji-hoon looked around the room at all the alien faces. "The choice is still ours to make," he said. "We can approach the jungle moon as conquerors and get the same results as the first expedition, or we can approach it as students and partners and gain access to wonders beyond our imagination." Commander Veltar closed her datapad with a decisive click. "I recommend we organize a new expedition immediately. But this time, we do it Ji-hoon's way. No weapons, no mining equipment, no demands. Just scientists who want to learn and diplomats who want to build relationships." "And me," Ji-hoon added with a smile. "Bomb's people trust me now. I can help introduce the new team properly." Bomb purred agreement and flickered briefly into her larger, more complex form before settling back into her comfortable cat-like appearance. The galaxy was about to change forever. 6 months after Ji-hoon's return, the research station orbiting Kepler 442c had been transformed into the largest diplomatic and scientific outpost in the galaxy. Ships from dozens of different civilizations crowded the expanded docking bays, and the corridors buzzed with excited conversations in hundreds of languages. Ji-hoon stood in the main observation deck, watching the green and brown planet below. But now he could see things that had been invisible before. Patterns of light moved through the jungle canopy, following paths that weren't random but carefully planned. The whole surface pulsed with a gentle rhythm like a slow heartbeat. "It's beautiful," said a familiar voice behind him. He turned to see Su-jin, his girlfriend, approaching with a warm smile. She had arrived 2 weeks ago as part of the new diplomatic team, bringing her skills as a xenolinguist to help establish better communication with the jungle's inhabitants. "More beautiful than we ever imagined," Ji-hoon agreed, wrapping his arms around her. "Wait until you see it up close." Bomb materialized on Su-jin's shoulder, having grown comfortable with all of Ji-hoon's close friends. The phase walker had become something of a celebrity on the station, though she usually preferred to stay in her smaller cat-like form when around large groups. "The new expedition launches tomorrow," Su-jin said. "Are you ready to go home?" Ji-hoon smiled at her choice of words. The jungle moon had indeed become like home to him. "More than ready, and this time we're doing it right." The new expedition was unlike anything the galaxy had ever organized. Instead of soldiers and mining equipment, the team consisted of diplomats, linguists, botanists, and cultural experts from every major civilization. Instead of weapons, they carried gifts and offerings of friendship. Most importantly, Ji-hoon was leading the mission as the official ambassador to the jungle civilizations, a title that had been created specifically for this unique situation. "Commander." Veltar entered the observation deck, her compound eyes reflecting the lights of the planet below. "Final mission briefing in 1 hour," she announced. "All team members are to gather in Conference Room Alpha." The briefing room was packed with beings from across the galaxy. Ji-hoon recognized diplomats from the core worlds, scientists from the Outer Rim, and explorers from the independent systems. Everyone wanted to be part of this historic mission. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications," Commander Veltar began. "Tomorrow, we make contact with what may be the most advanced ecosystem in the known galaxy. Dr. Ji-hoon will brief us on what to expect." Ji-hoon stood up, with Bomb perched comfortably on his shoulder. "First, I want everyone to understand that we're not going down to explore an empty world. We're visiting a living city that has been inhabited for thousands of years." He activated the wall display, showing images he had taken during his original stay in the jungle. "Every plant, every animal, every organism down there is part of a complex communication network. They know we're coming, they know who we are, and they're watching everything we do." A graceful dancer diplomat raised one of her flowing tentacles. "How should we approach first contact with the various species?" "Let them approach you," Ji-hoon replied. "The jungle inhabitants are naturally curious about visitors, but they need to feel safe first. Move slowly, keep your hands visible, and don't touch anything without permission." Su-jin stood up next to him. I've been working with Ji-hoon to develop basic communication protocols, she added. The chemical language of the plants is complex, but we've identified key phrases that mean friend, help, and trade. Everyone will receive chemical communicators before we go down. A mountain walker from the mining colonies raised his rocky hand. What about the energy fruits? When will we be able to begin harvesting operations? The room grew quiet, and Ji-hoon sighed. There won't be any harvesting, he said firmly. The energy fruits are cultivated by the phase walkers and their jungle partners. We can trade for them, but only as part of ongoing relationships built on trust and mutual benefit. Rockbreaker. Tholan's deep voice rumbled through the room. My people need those energy sources for our mining operations. Surely some arrangement can be made. Bomb flickered into her larger, more complex form, and her mental voice reached everyone in the room. The fruits grow best when they are cared for as living beings, not harvested as resources. Those who understand this will have access to energy beyond their dreams. Those who don't will find empty trees. Dr. Quinthos, who had become something of an expert on phase walker technology, added his support. The energy output increases dramatically when the fruits are properly tended. A single grove managed in partnership with the jungle can produce 10 times more energy than the same grove stripped bare by harvesting. The expedition launched the next morning with great ceremony. 12 shuttles descended through the atmosphere, each one carrying a different diplomatic team. Ji-hoon and Soo-jin were in the lead shuttle, along with Bomb and representatives from the major galactic powers. As they broke through the clouds, the jungle spread out below them like a green ocean. But now Ji-hoon could see the patterns he had, learned to recognize. Clearings that weren't random but carefully planned landing sites. Rivers that followed courses designed to connect different communities. Mountains that had been shaped by intelligence over thousands of years. Landing Site Alpha is clear for approach, came the voice of their pilot, a skilled Nexari named Quickwing Siltar. The shuttle touched down gently in a large clearing surrounded by towering trees. As the engines powered down, Ji-hoon could see movement in the jungle around them. Not threatening movement, but curious and welcoming. Remember, he said to the assembled diplomats as they prepared to disembark, we're guests here. Let them set the pace. The shuttle doors opened, and the expedition stepped out onto the soft jungle floor. The reaction was immediate and wonderful. Flowers began blooming all around the clearing, releasing sweet scents that the chemical translators identified as greetings of welcome. Small crystal creatures emerged from the undergrowth, their bodies chiming with musical tones of friendship. Vines descended from the canopy, not to attack, but to offer gifts of exotic fruits. And from the deeper jungle came the phase walkers. There were dozens of them, ranging in size from cat-like beings like Bomb to magnificent creatures the size of small buildings. All of them shimmered between dimensions, their forms shifting and changing as they moved through spaces that didn't exist in normal reality. The largest phase walker approached Ji-hoon directly. This being was clearly ancient and important, its form more complex and beautiful than anything the expedition had ever seen. When it spoke through the mental link, its voice carried the weight of millennia. Welcome back, friend Ji-hoon, the elder phase walker said. We have prepared many wonders to share with your people if they prove worthy of such gifts. Ji-hoon bowed respectfully. Thank you for welcoming us. These are my friends and colleagues. They come seeking knowledge and partnership. The elder's attention turned to the assembled diplomats, and Ji-hoon felt a gentle probing of their thoughts and intentions. After a moment, the ancient being seemed satisfied. We sense good hearts among your people, the elder announced. Come, let us show you the true nature of our world. What followed was the most amazing day in galactic history. The expedition was led through groves of energy fruits that glowed like captured stars. They visited crystal gardens where the hunter creatures crafted beautiful works of art. They explored, living cities built entirely from cooperative plant networks, with houses that grew themselves and transportation systems based on willing vine networks. Most impressive of all were the energy generation sites, where massive trees collected power, not just from sunlight, but from dimensional forces that human science barely understood. The phase walkers had learned to tap into the fundamental forces of reality itself, creating clean energy on a scale that could power entire star systems. By evening, the expedition had established the framework for a permanent diplomatic presence on the jungle moon. The phase walkers agreed to share their technology in exchange for cultural exchange and protection of their ecosystem. The energy fruits would be available for trade, but only to civilizations that proved they could use such power responsibly. As the expedition prepared to return to the orbital station for the night, Sujin took Ji-hoon's hand and looked around at the incredible living city surrounding them. "How did you know it would work out like this?" she asked. Ji-hoon smiled and reached up to pet Bomb, who was back in her comfortable cat form and purring contentedly. "I didn't know anything for certain. I just trusted that if we approached them with respect and friendship, they would respond the same way." The elder phase walker appeared beside them, its massive form flickering in and out of normal space. "Your species shows great promise, young humans. Perhaps you are ready to learn about the greater community of advanced civilizations that exists beyond your current understanding." Ji-hoon felt his heart race with excitement. Greater community? The phase walkers are just one of many ancient species that watch over the galaxy, the elder explained. There are beings of pure energy, civilizations that exist in parallel dimensions, and entities that predate the formation of your solar system. All of them have been waiting for younger species to evolve beyond the need for conquest and war. Sujin squeezed Ji-hoon's hand tightly. "And humanity has passed the first test?" The elder's form shimmered with what might have been amusement. "One human has passed the test. Whether your entire species can do the same remains to be seen, but you have made a promising start." As they boarded the shuttle for the return trip to the station, Ji-hoon looked back at the glowing jungle with wonder and anticipation. The Deathworld had become a gateway to possibilities beyond imagination. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. 2 years had passed since the first successful diplomatic mission to the jungle moon. The research station had been expanded into a massive spaceport and cultural center, with permanent ambassadors from every major civilization in the galaxy. What had once been classified as a Class 5 Deathworld was now officially designated as the protected symbiotic sanctuary of Kepler 4422c. Ji-hoon stood in his new office, which was built entirely from living wood that had grown itself according to phase walker architectural principles. The walls pulsed gently with bioluminescent patterns that showed the health and mood of the jungle below. Through the transparent sections, he could see the thriving settlement that had grown up around the original landing site. Humans, aliens, and jungle natives worked together in the gardens that now covered the moon's surface. Energy fruit trees grew in carefully tended groves, producing more power than ever before thanks to the cooperative farming methods developed by the partnership. Crystal hunters guided tour groups through the safe paths, teaching visitors about jungle ecology and interdimensional physics. Sujin entered the office carrying a data pad and wearing the blue robes that marked her as a senior cultural liaison. "The monthly production reports are ready," she said, settling into the chair across from his desk. Bomb materialized on the desk between them, no longer shy about using her phase-walking abilities around friends. Over the past 2 years, she had grown more comfortable with her role as cultural ambassador, and her ability to communicate between species had become invaluable. "The energy fruit production is up 15% from last month," Sujin reported. "The new hybrid groves are exceeding all expectations." The hybrid groves were one of the most successful innovations to come from the human phase walker partnership. By combining human agricultural knowledge with phase walker interdimensional cultivation techniques, they had created trees that produced fruits with energy densities that shouldn't have been physically possible. Trade requests? Ji-hoon asked. 73 new applications this month, Soo-jin replied, including first-time requests from the Spiral Arm Confederacy and the Deep Core Mining Union. Each trade request had to be carefully evaluated by the Joint Human Phase Walker Council. The energy fruits were incredibly valuable, but they came with strict conditions. Any civilization that wanted access to the technology had to prove they would use it responsibly and maintain environmental standards in their own territories. Any rejections? Soo-jin's expression became serious. 5. The Predator Fleet Coalition was denied again for obvious reasons. The corporate mining syndicate was rejected for their environmental record on Titan 7, and 3 smaller civilizations were turned down for weapons research applications. Ji-hoon nodded approvingly. The Phase Walkers had made it clear from the beginning that their energy technology would not be used for warfare or environmental destruction. Any attempt to weaponize the fruits or use them to power planet-killing devices would result in immediate termination of all trade relationships. What about the new candidates for Phase Walker Partnership? He asked. Bomb's form shimmered as she accessed information from the larger Phase Walker collective. 3 species are currently being evaluated for advanced technology sharing, she reported through their mental link. The singing crystals of Vega 9 have shown exceptional harmony with their environment. The Deep Ocean Collective of Aquarius Prime demonstrates advanced cooperative social structures. The tree shepherds of the outer forest worlds already practice sustainable interdimensional agriculture. These evaluations were part of a larger process that the Phase Walkers called readiness assessment. Species that showed they could live in harmony with their environment and each other were gradually introduced to more advanced technologies and contact with the greater galactic community. Humanity had been the first species in over 1,000 years to pass the initial tests. A soft chime indicated someone was at the office door. "Come in," Ji-hoon called. Commander Veltar entered, followed by a group of young beings that Ji-hoon didn't recognize. They appeared to be students of various species, all wearing the green badges that identified them as participants in the Interdimensional Studies program. "Ji-hoon, I'd like you to meet this semester's exchange students," Veltar said. "They're here to learn about human diplomatic methods." The group included a young, graceful dancer whose tentacles moved in patterns of nervous excitement, a small mountain walker whose rocky exterior was polished to a bright shine, and several other species that Ji-hoon was still learning to identify. "Welcome to the sanctuary," Ji-hoon said warmly. "I hope you'll find your stay here educational." The young, graceful dancer flowed forward. "Ambassador Ji-hoon, my name is Flowsinger Murthia. I've studied all the reports about your first contact methods. I want to understand how humans succeed where other species fail." Ji-hoon smiled and gestured for the students to sit in the comfortable chairs that grew from the living floor. "What makes you think humans are special? We're just one species among thousands," the young mountain walker's gravelly voice rumbled with curiosity. "But you were the first to make peaceful contact with the Phase Walkers, the first to establish trade relationships with the jungle civilizations, the first to turn a Deathworld into a paradise. How do you explain this success?" Soo-jin and Bomb exchanged amused looks. This was a question they heard often from visiting dignitaries and researchers. "I think it's because humans don't see the galaxy as something to be conquered," Ji-hoon replied thoughtfully. "We see it as something to be part of. When other species encounter something unknown, their first instinct is often to analyze, categorize, and control it. Humans tend to try to befriend it first." One of the other students, a crystalline being similar to Dr. Quinthos, chimed with skeptical tones. "But humans have a reputation for being aggressive and warlike. Your history is full of conflicts and conquests." "That's true," Ji-hoon admitted. But our history is also full of examples of humans making friends with their former enemies. We have a saying, the best way to defeat an enemy is to make them your friend. Bomb flickered into her larger, more complex form and addressed the students directly through the mental link. Humans have a unique gift among the younger species, she explained. They are capable of seeing potential friends in the most unlikely,